success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I've got an extra special treat for you joining me in the Hit Lab today. But before I get there, I had to, this guest required some extra muscle. Not that I'm not good enough, because I am, but it's for you. It's totally for you. And I had to bring on my partner and COO of Hit Lab Creative Studios, my guy, previous guest on the Hitstreak, Mr. Jim Gray. Jim, how excited are you to have this guest on with us today?
Nick, I am so pumped that, as we say around here, if I was any more pumped, I'd be twins today. And that's a lot of twin.
That's a twinning.
That's a double moment right there. That's double impact.
That's right. It's literally twinning.
It is. It sure is.
It's twinning.
I'm stoked about being here and being in the room. I've been in the room and in all the corners of this room and done all the things, and it's really super fun to be here with the crew today.
Absolutely. Well, check it out, folks. Help me welcome. He is the founder and CEO at Executive Brand Growth. He is the host of the Branding Beyond Business podcast. You know him as a fraction chief creative. He's a freaking rock star. He used to literally run Las Vegas, folks. Help me welcome John Mediana. What's happening, baby?
What is up, y'all? So good to be in the building. Oh my goodness. This spot is fire, by the way. This studio is hot. And I'm stoked to be here. Let's get it, man. I'm so pumped. What's up, Jim, man? It's good to see you, brother.
How we doing?
Dude,
it's good to see you in the room like this.
Actually, in person in the room. It's nice. Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Absolutely.
Well, we got lots to talk about. So I want to open it up because, again, your story and everything that you did in Las Vegas, which is literally the entertainment capital of the world, one of my favorite spots on planet Earth. I always have a good time in Vegas.
Same.
Tell me about your Vegas stories. I heard a little bit about it in a recent meeting, dude. Just blew me away. So I want to hear more.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love Vegas, first of all. So shout out to all my Vegas folks and whatnot. I still got tons of friends and connections, lots of people in Vegas. So I got massive love. That's my extended family over there, my second home. So yeah, I was in Vegas for a minute. Started in 2018, was there for a couple of years. But before that, I was actually there prior to that and made a lot of friends there. And then I was back and forth from Cali and Vegas. So it was a really fun kind of drive every single month, going from Cali to Vegas, meeting and working with friends. But I was specifically there on a mission, on an assignment, and that was to rebrand the city of Las Vegas. So the agency that started Las Vegas, the LVCVA, which is what we call the Las Vegas Convention Center and Vegas Visitors Authority, they launched that in a long time ago. But they started the campaign, What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas. And I joined as a content strategist and creator on the team in that agency to help also rebrand and make more content for Las Vegas. And that was a lot of fun and a big task. And we were tasked to rebrand the city because they were coming up on their 20th anniversary from the campaign. So we're like, all right, well, what is the rebrand of Las Vegas? How are we going to do this? How do you even think to rebrand the most iconic campaign on the planet, still winning awards today, by the way, right? So we had to do a lot of work and really dial it in. And it's so funny because you would never think that we put in that much work because we only changed one word out of the whole campaign. So I was part of the whole rebrand that changed it from What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas to What Happens in Vegas Only Happens in Vegas.
Oh, man.
But it is the most significant word change because that changed the whole identity of what Vegas meant.
They say words have meaning and they matter. And that's literally iconic proof.
Yeah.
If I've ever heard so myself. So check this out, folks. You guys, you and Jim have known each other for quite some time, right? Yeah. So Jim, how do you know old John over there?
So I knew John from, folks like Sean Cannell, who was mutual friends out of Vegas, and a little bit of the church world, a little bit of the music world, a little bit of the podcasting world. And then we were connected, right? We were connected via social media, and then a mutual friend, Dr. Justin Mosley.
Good friend, Dr. Justin.
He's like, but I'll let you tell that part of the story.
Oh yeah, no. Justin was like, "Hey, I'm going to the Hit Lab, and we're going to be doing some podcasts." So I would, and I was like, "Is that where Jim Gray's at?" And he's like, "Yep." And I'm like, "I'll see you there." And I was like, I just invited myself.
That's how you do it.
But he reached out, and I was like, "Dude, is Jim going to be? If Jim's going to be there, I got to come say hi because we've been online buddies for a minute." And it's like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I'm just going to clear my schedule for that day and come and hang out and just meet the fine folks here at Hit Lab. And ever since then, it was just magical.
It truly was. I met you for the first time that day that you were here. And dude, like folks, it's very important to be memorable, right? And John is extremely memorable. I don't remember exactly what you had on that day, but I was like, there was a lot of thought that went into that. Everything that he does is on purpose, and that attracts people like me to people like you, especially on a professional level, because what I've learned is the big things are the small things, and like everything that people are intentional about grows.
Yes.
Right. And like, man, I judge a lot of books by the cover based on appearance right out of the gates. Now I'm open to learning more, but dude, you smashed it that day here at the Hit Lab, and it's been every day since I met you since.
Every day, brother. And you know what's so funny that you mentioned that, because it's true, by the way. Truth is that people do judge by the cover. So you got to make a first impression. And this is something I learned in business and in life by mentors and people, and honestly, just biblical principles of just showing up and making a memorable impression. Because that you gotta kind of let the guard down and let people know that you're just a human being like everybody else, and make it easy for them to have access to you and talk to you and hear your story, because it is that first impression.
That's right.
That leads to the deeper conversation and a deeper relationship.
Absolutely. So, well, let me just ask you some basic questions. And folks, this is all off the cuff. You don't know I'm going this direction, but like, dude, you got a very unique, cool style about you.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And honestly, like it makes my day when people guess that I'm in my 30s. You know what I mean? I'm like, I did something right.
Yeah.
Bro. Like, I mean, I would even say you could pass for 20s, like for real. Everything about you speaks youth and vibrance. It's awesome, right? But there's an expertise. Most time when you think youth, you don't think expert, right? But you kind of have the total combination of all three. Like, what is it like? I know when everything, the way I dress is on purpose. And the biggest reason that people see what I like, the way I look today, is it's because I was literally rebranding from a past life. Like as a professional athlete, that was a really hard thing to reposition myself as far as just appearance and such. So how did you come up with your style?
Yeah, man. I mean, I like to say it's not about what you're wearing, it's how you rock it. Right? It's not about what you're wearing, it's how you rock it, how you wear it. And I come from the West Coast. So I was born and raised in LA. As you could tell, you could probably look at me and be like, he's from LA. But yes, you're right. So I'm not in my 20s. I'm actually 36. I'm married. I got 2 kids. I'm a father. I'm a husband. Right? So like for me, I think that youthfulness comes because I got a lot of joy in my life, and I love young people. They give me energy. They give me life. When I have conversations with young people, it jazzes me up because I feel like I have a responsibility as a mentor, as like to coach people and to mentor folks because we have experience. We have a lot of experience in our field, and that experience could really kind of isolate us a little bit. It could kind of feel lonely at the top, but young people, when they're hungry and they're just like, I want to just be around you, right? So I want to meet them at their level and coach them to wherever they want to go, especially in the creative fields, right? So like if I'm trying to be like dressing like this, I got to attract those people. I got to be magnetic. I got to be like, yo, you carry a swag. There's something about your swag, and the other day I was dressing up in a button-up shirt and like a suit and tie, So it's just like what you put on and what you put out there. I could walk in a room and real recognizes real. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it does.
Real recognizes real. So I could go to a coffee shop and as soon as you walk in, you could navigate through the room and be like, oh, I connect with that person. I haven't even talked to him. There's an aura about him. There's an energy about him. And that's what I wake up and I say, God, how can I attract and create divine moments where people that are wanting to be part of my tribe or be in my circle, how can I track those people? And he's like, you know what? First impressions are important. And even though we don't like saying judge a book by its cover, people are at that level where they do.
Yeah.
And if I understand the audience, if I understand that person, then I'm going to meet them where they're at. And then when we have that conversation, we're going to get to go deeper.
Dude, there's 2 things happened to me to truly understand what your you're talking about. So the first thing is I did, it was one of the first ever times I got asked to do like a little keynote. And it was a whole bunch of people that were in my space of insurance and other things. And so I go out there and I put on, at the time, what was my best Navy suit, parted my hair and put on my little loafers, and there I go. And I got up there and I killed it, if I'm being honest, right? So I'm standing at the little bar waiting on a drink later, and there's two guys talking about something that I had said that really resonated with them. So I'm sitting there and I'm eavesdropping and listening on this conversation. I was like, this is awesome. And they looked dead at me and they're like, yeah, man, did you hear what that guy said? And at that moment I looked out and I was like, everybody here is wearing the same suit I am, the same fit. I was like, I don't stand out. And not long after that, I went to I was with my cousin who's a portrait artist, a world-class portrait artist, and he looks like he's from the 1920s boardwalk prohibition era. Like everything's a custom tailored suit on purpose. He's extremely memorable. And we walked in a place together, and it was like in the movies. It was like the record scratch, and everybody stopped what they were doing and looked at us, right? And it kind of took me by surprise, and he just leaned over to me and kind of nudged me, and he said, "That's right." Whoa. I was like, whoa. Yeah. I was like, I get it. I get it. So I was like, I have 20/20 vision. Yeah. All right. But in your 40s, it takes longer to focus. That's what these are for. But the real reason I had these, I wore these glasses I'm holding in my hand for a good 6 months without lenses, because it was, again, I gotta be different. If I wanted people to look at me different and feel different about me, I had to give them an opportunity to do that. And I started with what I saw in the mirror. Yeah. Right. So I started wearing glasses. I had never had long hair. So I grew my hair out a little bit longer. And I started wearing clothes that were just different, memorable. Right. At the time, it was still suits. It was before COVID when people got real casual. So it was Toms with slacks and mismatched suits, like different colored pants and jackets, lapels. I hated ties at the time. So I wore big fat lapels and pocket squares. And it was just a thing. People would be like, why do you wear that? And I'm like, that's why.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why. It's so funny because like when you say that, I look at my life and I look at the impact and things that happen in my life, and I'm like, yeah, this is so funny because better isn't better. Different is better, right? Different, because when you're in a saturated industry, when there's a lot of noise, when you're looking like, and that's so funny to me because when you're a kid, you're trying so hard to fit in and kind of get lost in the crowd. But when you're an adult, you're trying to go back to your childhood and be like, I wish I was different because I'm all the same. What makes me unique and different? And when you get older, like us, as we're getting older, we recognize the uniqueness. We ought to lean into that and become more us. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so the first time I ever met old Jim over there was just more of him. He dressed really cool and he had a totally unique look about him. As a matter of fact, if I didn't know anything about him and I had to walk into that, Panera Bread that we first met at the first time face to face, I could have found him pretty easily, right? Because of the way that he was dressed. Now there's just less of him because he's lost so much weight and he looks amazing. But like Jim, you have, everything that you do is intentional. We've talked about it. And you have a very unique and memorable look about you, right? So tell me a little bit about how you got there.
Well, first of all, I was born cool.
Well, no, I think so. So.
Much like you, it's, Nick's a natural Tennessee, you're a unicorn, right?
Yes.
And there's not many of y'all left. And but you and I have something in common. We're both from California.
Yep.
Right. And growing up as being a Gen X parent and a creative business executive that I am now, I'm always walking into places and I'm like, what do I need to say and what do I need to wear and what do I need to do that are memorable? Because I get oftentimes, whether it's music or podcasting or whatever that conversation or that dialogue is, I'm looking to leave that. They might not remember who I am, but they will remember how I made them feel and maybe something I said, and it's very powerful. So like the glasses, the hat, the jackets, like the sneakers, like everything is a people,
it's a vibe.
Young kids like yourself, tell me, man, I really love your fit. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I like it.
I'll take it as a compliment.
Absolutely. And even in the world of sports and baseball, going to, in high school and college, always going to the workouts and the tryouts and all those things, scout days and everything else. Like, dude, the people that get the attention scouts first are the guys that look like a baseball player. Like they have the body type, the body frame, whatever it is. Like that guy looks like a big leaguer. He may not play like one, but they're going to at least watch long enough to find out. Right. So it was right in there in front of me the whole time. And I was too dumb to realize what I was even doing. I was a retired professional athlete and I dressed the same way for another 5 years, I think. Right. So everybody just looked at me like in my mind, I was still a professional athlete, yet I didn't have a job. I didn't play. I was actually doing something else. Right. So it was a very conflictive branding thing that I was doing when it comes to how I ran. But it's just, again, you guys stood out. And if anything from this episode today, you're going to get a lot more. But like, look, man, like you want to stand out and you need to be memorable.
That's right. You need to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
God only made one of you.
That's it. Yeah, man. Look at your thumbprint. There's how many 8 billion people on the planet? Not one person has your thumbprint. And that's a good reminder. If you just want to feel like, God, I don't feel like I'm unique enough, or I'm not this enough, I'm not creative enough, take your thumb out, look at it, and just say, wow, I'm different.
Yeah. Well, dude, when I met you, and I didn't know who you were at the moment, it was the first time I'd ever met you, but I knew you were somebody, right? And then, of course, I just immediately, when I left the room, I went and looked it up. I'm like, he is somebody. It matched. It worked. That's right. Dude, we got a lot of things in common enough that we want to help a lot of the same people, and we've partnered up.
Yes, we did. Oh, it's exciting, man. It is exciting.
So I've said it the whole time, the Hit Lab Creative Studios, everything that we do here is a luxury item. It's for, if the business journey was K through 12, it's not for elementary school. It's more for maybe the advanced middle schoolers, but more up to like even the high school and even college and up, right? So we serve a lot of the same folks, and you do a lot of things extremely well that are things that we were looking to grow into. And when we built the Hit Lab, it was like we didn't want everything exactly in-house. We wanted to go out and find the people that are best at what it is that we're trying to accomplish for our clients. Dude, you solve a lot of those problems for us.
Wow, thank you, man. Honestly, it's an honor, a privilege. I am completely just excited because collaboration happens at the top. Competition happens at the bottom. So our ethos aligned. And since day one, it's just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that we're going to be doing business together because greatness happens in collaboration with those who are aligned in the same mission.
That's exactly right. Basically, we're just pooling all of our resources together. And that's, it's literally like, it's no different than when the National League and the Major Leagues puts their best, 9 guys on the field in the whole league. That's called an all-star team. And that's what I've always wanted to have here at the Hit Lab was I wanted to surround myself with the best in their space and create an all-star team and then help a whole bunch of people with that.
That's right, man. And that's what we're doing. And the time is now, by the way. It's not next year. It ain't no 5-year dream. It's not no pipe dream. It's today.
That's right. That's right. Well, so folks, check it out. If you want to keep up with John online, there's you can check out his company, executivebrandgrowth.com, and check out, there's 3 Instagram handles you need to follow. One is his name, John Mediana. The other one is at Branding Beyond Business, and the other one is at Executive Brand Growth. And dude, your podcast is fantastic. We shot an episode of your podcast just the other day.
Yes, and it was fire. So you got to tune in.
And people can find that anywhere. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so Branding Beyond Business really stemmed from this idea of, all right, like every business owners go through the ebb and flows of business. And a lot of people think that it's just this shiny object and this trophy, but people don't really realize what it takes to build business, that you got to have a beyond mentality. And this comes from Ephesians, right? That God could do above, more beyond what we could ever think or imagine. And it's about the foundation of going beyond. When you want to make beyond impact, if you want to go beyond relationships, if you want to go beyond business, you got to have some principles in the way. So I love to invite friends that I know that are trusted, that have built beyond, right?
Yeah.
And I want to have them on the show talking about that trench story or the mechanisms or the things that they've learned about building businesses and building relationships. So we go beyond in the beyond section when it comes to business.
And man, when you're a huge faith-based guy, which is another reason we connect so strongly, right? Dude, your story is incredible. You didn't grow up with the silver spoon in your mouth and the perfect childhood and everything else. I want to just let folks know, because a lot of times, people's past will be a crutch they lean on their whole entire life and they let it hold them back. And you've taken those things that many in history have called a crutch and be a reason to hold them back. And you've taken it and instead used it as a way to elevate yourself. You know what I mean? You've instead of looking for a handout, you just needed a hand up, baby. You know what I mean? So tell everybody a little bit about your story briefly.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give a little nutshell of the story because I could go on for days and days. And it is one of those Oprah stories, because I was adopted as a baby, and when you're adopted, and if I'm talking to someone and someone's in the audience right now that's adopted, let me just tell you that you have worth, you have meaning, that you have a purpose, that you have an identity. And I'm telling you, the work that you do isn't the value that you are, that your identity and purpose is signed, sealed, delivered by a good creator, a good father. Hello. And you've been adopted not only into this world, but into the kingdom. Hello. Right. So I had to look from the perspective of adoption. And when you're adopted, I got my kids of my own, but being adopted, my parents had to choose to love me every single day. It was a choice to love, to nurture, to grow, to raise, and those were choices. And now that I'm older, I recognize the power of adoption, the power of understanding that we've been adopted into the kingdom of God, and that his love and his purpose and all that stuff, that we have now his son's identity, that he transferred the identity of his son to the identity to us as adopted sons and daughters, right? And now we could crush it on this planet and actually bring heaven on earth, which is what we're called to do, set the captives free and bring heaven on earth. Yeah. So my mission in life has come from this place of adoption and the lens of a father and a son. That's right. Understanding that I am a son, that's my identity first. And you could be you are a son or a daughter, by the way. You're either the son of the devil or son of the God, the living God. Right? Son of the darkness or son of the light. So whatever you do, whether it's business, whether it's, you're doing your 9-to-5 job, whether it's coaching, whether it's e-commerce, everything stems from your identity. What is that? So that foundation of purpose, mission, vision, those are key elements. And if you haven't discovered that, I'm hoping that you could go do some inward work, inside of you and really find out what is your purpose here, right? So I believe that my story, my adoption story, is not only a good story, but a God story.
Absolutely.
And the work that I do as a chief creative and the business that I've built and the relationships that I've made stems from this purpose and mission and direction of redeeming the unredeemed through telling their stories and letting them know that they have a story to tell. And I use the vehicle of creativity, content creation, podcasts, all those things. Those are tools. Those are just vehicles.
That's right.
To tell those stories.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. I've told this story a few times. We had earlier in 2023, we had lost, my wife and I had lost a friend of ours, and it was a sudden loss. It wasn't expected. It was literally just a sickness that nobody knew was there, and you know what I mean. And it happened in the night. And one of the bravest things I've ever seen is when her mom stood up at her funeral and said, I lost my husband suddenly. I lost my daughter suddenly. And she stood right up there and she said, I want to thank God for thinking enough of me, believing enough in me to trust when the suddenlies come about. God put enough trust in you to know that your story was going to help others that are in that same situation. And not to mention the people who adopted you probably saved them.
Yeah.
You probably saved them. You were put here to save them because they had a void.
Yeah.
They had a service and a calling to do something. And then here you come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I believe it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's, but you could have easily said, woe is me.
Yeah.
I didn't get the great mom and dad like that guy got and everything else. But instead you use that, again, the gifts are in the challenges because there's no, we love the underdog story. Well, the underdog loses first. They got everything up against them.
That's so true, man. Here's the thing. Complaining doesn't get you to where you want to go, right? Complaining doesn't get you to where you want to go or solve any problems that you have right now currently.
Yeah.
And I've learned early on, and so funny story. Me and my wife used to be youth pastors, right? So we talk about youth. You know, I love youth ministry. That's like the soil, right? The soil is right to like just really influence and create impact in their life. That's going to take them to the trajectory of their life, right? So like, it's so funny. I would tell them every like Sunday, I'm not here to convince you to love Jesus or to know that there's a God. I'm not, because if someone comes in your life down the line, they might convince you out of it. Right? I'm here to give you evidence, like overwhelming evidence that there is a God and he loves you.
Yeah.
And he's a good father. I want to have an experience with God. Right? So like even with branding and marketing, I'm not here to convince you that I'm awesome to work with.
Yeah.
You know, I want to give you an experience so that no one could convince you out of not working with us.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Jim, what was it? You know, when I told you we met him and I was like, man, he's a star, dude. We gotta work with that guy. We gotta figure something out. And it was you were, I mean, before I could even finish my sentence, you're like, no problem, no brainer. I was like, cool, connect us, set a meeting, and let's rock and roll. What was some of the things that stood out the most to you about John?
Man, I was just thinking about what you said about Ephesians chapter 1, where we're grafted into the Holy Family now with Jesus, right? Because of Jesus's work, redemptive work on the cross, God says, hey, I'm building you into the lineage now, right? And when you're talking about like when we go out and represent in our work as creative business leaders, that we represent that our family that we're grafted into, right? But man, I think your attitude and I call it, I don't really know what to call it other than the vibe. It's like there's certain people that I've met that God has allowed me to be. And Nick, I experienced this with Nick. Was that when you meet somebody and you have things, you already have things in common, and it's almost like somebody you'd play ball with, where you know that they're at a certain standard, and you can go and do things with them. There's an awful lot of things you don't need to talk about because the like-mindedness is there, and that's what I sensed about you. I was like, oh, dude, he's ready, and we're ready, and it's like it's just like when we're developing people or developing process. It's like, what's the goal of one party? What's the goal of the other party? And then what are the things that need to happen that we can fuse that together?
We call that synergy.
Right.
There's a synergy in the room. There's an electric energy in the room.
Yes.
There's commonality. There's camaraderie.
Yes.
We're saying,
come on,
hey, there's a destiny that we're trying to get to, and there's a mission that we're on. And I see you because we're on the same path. And like you look, sometimes when you're running the race, and then you like look over and there's someone else running alongside you, and you're like, wait a minute, are we going to the same place? And then you're like, yes, we are. Well, let's go together.
That's right.
Let's keep each other accountable. When you get tired, I'm going to push you. When I get tired, you're going to push me. And guess what? We get to finish the race together.
That's right.
Right? That's synergy to me.
Well, and we're already talking about, like, we've already had a talk this week, on the phone about, what could we go to together and show up at, where people are like, wait, those guys are working together? That's trouble.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good kind of trouble too, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's a good kind of trouble.
We actually call that here, we have a title for it. We call it shenanigans.
Shenanigans. I do love shenanigans.
Oh, let's get into some shenanigans.
I love some shenanigans. Well, dude, like, I feel like we've got a lot of work to do because, it still blows my mind. I feel like, digital marketing, especially through social media, podcasting, these things are not new. They've been around for quite some time. But man, to me, it feels like, I guess because I run around with some people that are excelling in the space, I feel like everybody understands and knows this, but it's a very small percentage of the population that actually does. And that's, I think, the calling for us to work together is because, like, dude, there's a right and a wrong way to do these things. And it's not, this is hard work and it's not cheap, right? So like, you really need to make sure that if you're going to work these routes and work these angles and work these platforms, that you're going in the right direction and you're not going backwards and having to redo it later, That's right, man. I run into a lot of people that, take these concepts, and everybody knows it because it's all felt because we're on these little devices in our, pants that you call phones or computers, but this is the distraction part. So you're either a consumer or creator, right? So you're either consuming and you're the product, or you're the creator, which is you're the one that's really orchestrating all the stuff, right? So like
Are you a consumer or are you a creator? And these things we all know in sense.
Hold on. They're consumer creator. One person's spending money, one person's making money.
That's right, baby. That's right. Always, right? Because that's what these platforms are designed for. They need to make their money, right? So how do they make their money? They make it off of advertising. They make it off of attention, right? That's the whole currency of today's world is attention. And it's getting more like lower than it was 10 years ago, right? Before, our attention is like, you could watch a movie, a 3-hour movie, and stay in tune. You could remember back in the day when they were making movies and they had the long intros with the names and all the stuff before.
Oh yeah.
And now they just start at the action part.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, what movie is this? Is this a commercial? What is this?
They almost start right with a hook.
They start with a hook. And today's currency is attention. So if you have that attention, you're able to convert that into funds and money and make a transaction. But the problem people have is that they see it all day, every day, and they tell themselves, well, I could do that. Right? I got a nephew that has a TikTok. Right? I consume it all day. So they're very desensitized to what it takes to make the thing actually happen.
I ask, especially a lot of our new business owners that we work with, one of the first questions I ask them once we figure out kind of what it is they're wanting to do and how they want to do it is like, well, what are some of your favorite places that you shop? Whether it be clothing, food, whatever. And then can you tell me why you like them? Right. And they've really never thought about it before. And it's like, well, guess what? People are going to be making the same decisions about doing business with you. So we're all consumers. Yet we struggle with making the thing that is consumed. And it's because we're not aware of what's actually happening to us and what we're actually doing.
Yeah, there is what we call in our company, we have this thing that we do when we find the right audience. It's called competency and awareness, right? So we have a golden grid, we call it, of competency and awareness. So we have the competency enough to know that we need social media as a company, that somehow social media fits into the whole marketing thing and blah, blah, blah. We see it, right? We see these influencers and people that we look up to, but we don't have the awareness enough to understand what it actually takes, or even the plan or strategy to put the message in front of the right people, the right audience at the right time, right? And that's where the disconnect is, because let me tell you, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait till you hire an amateur.
That's right.
Right?
It's kind of like you don't know what a bad neighbor looks like until you've had one.
Exactly. And this is so true. I'm telling you, how many stories have you heard where people try to duct tape marketing?
Oh, yeah.
Right? People had to fire and hire agencies and this. I had this bad taste in my mouth. I got burned out because I made this $20,000 investment. They promised this. They never gave me this.
That's right.
Blah, blah, blah. So you know what? I found an intern at the local college here, and then he doesn't know what they're doing. They're just learning too. And I don't know creative, so I don't know how to manage them. So it was kind of just like a wasted time. My energy's wasted. My time's wasted. I'm burned out. My investment's wasted. All those things. Instead, you just got to come to Jim, Nick, myself, and be like, hey, what would it take to actually build this thing right?
There's we have I say it a lot in my house, and this is kind of my philosophy whenever I get involved in a project. So if I like to play golf, and I do, but I don't golf very often. If I like to play golf and I go golfing, that would be a hobby because I'm not getting paid to do it, right? And the moment you start getting paid to do it, especially if you can make a living doing it, it's no longer a hobby anymore, right? So a lot of times, when I don't think people understand how to pick the agencies or creatives that they want to help them go, because we talked about the other day, and it's something we're going to get into right now, the difference between a creative and a business creative.
Yeah.
Right. And again, if I make money playing golf, it's not a hobby anymore. It's a profession.
Yeah,
it's a job.
You got a lot of these creatives that are coming up because social media, let me just tell you right now, social media is easy, right? Anybody that has an account, you could open it for free. You could get on this thing for free. You got a 4K camera built into your computer device in your pocket, right? So people kind of really understand like, okay, what does it take to be a content creator? They started getting into it as a hobby, and they're like, oh, I could probably charge for doing this because it's a lot of fun. I got a lot of free time and I need to make a little extra, feta cheese. And so like they're like, I'm a content creator. Right. And then they go into this freelance mindset. So there's a lot of stages when it comes to creatives, but they don't recognize like in the very beginning, you're an amateur, a pro, or a master, right? Amateur, pro, or a master. All right. So an amateur started off as it's a hobby. It's really fun. I get a lot of energy from this. They don't have a processor system, right, to do things. They kind of just are throwing, spray and pray. I like this about it. They haven't figured out actually what they like about it. They'll start with weddings, then they'll do headshots, then they'll do music video. So they're kind of like, I do everything. You do everything because you haven't found the thing you're passionate about. Right? You haven't found the lane. You haven't found the thing that you felt like God designed you for. Right? So you're just testing things out. So you're like, I don't know, $1,000, $500. Like, I just do this, but they have no process or system to deliver content or get to the outcomes or the business side. Right. So the pro is someone that gets paid to do it, but they probably don't have a team or communication skills or those skills yet, but they get paid to do it and they get paid consistently. But sometimes there's ebb and flows of seasons, right? So like, oh my gosh, I'm a broke creative, I'm a starving artist, all that stuff, right? A master is someone that has put in the season, put in the time. They are seasoned. They have process, they have systems, they understand where their niche is, they understand all those things, and they could tie that to business outcomes. And they could apply and not get salty about someone sending a revision request, by the way, right? So I don't know if you ever worked with a creative that's like this is like their masterpiece. This one reel for 60 seconds is going to just be the game changer that will change and transform someone's account, right? And pop off and get 1 million views. And it's like, okay, I got 17 views. Why? And they get salty because they don't want to go through the process of revision. But the process of refining your craft is what makes you into a master, because masters don't see the goal as an outcome. They see the process as the goal. So let me say it again slower. Masters see the process as the goal, the journey of creating. That's a master. And when you work with masters, your outcomes are going to be significantly different than working with an amateur or pro, because a master, it can plug in any tool and anything that they have in their toolkit to get to that outcome. And they're willing to test, learn, and adapt and give it breath. You know what I'm saying? And a pro, they'll hesitate. They get really anxious and like, well, I tried this and then, this usually works. Have you heard someone say that? This usually works, right? I'm like, oh, but you haven't put in the time yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jim, when you came over, you came from a slightly different space. We've been in the trenches. Literally lived in the trenches for almost 2 years. What's some of the things that stands out that like you've learned, the stuff that you see, he was just talking about, and that you see in him, as to why we want to work together and why we need to work together and why the people need us to work together. The people that we serve need this partnership, right? So what's some of the stuff that like really that you've learned that you've been able to apply to even some of your other ventures?
Oh, for sure. Like, I think about, when you're talking about the amateur, the pro, and the masters, it's amazing to me when, somebody can be really young and they can be really gifted at something, but they, there's almost like an entitlement thing that happens. And, when you get to a certain level, that like the true art is found in the revision process. It's not found in the first iteration, right? And it's like, how many iterations do we need to go through? Nick and I have had some funny exchanges. Well, they're funny now. They may not have been funny then, but about, things like YouTube thumbnails. And this is why we designed the Hitstreak thumbnails this way. And this is the process we went there. And we've had, we've gone through a revision process where we now have a brand standard for what that needs to look like. And it's like, are you willing to go through the fire of working together and some late nights and early mornings and some arguments even to get something that's so refined and so good? Because like, and like the reason that we've grown together is because of accountability and creativity, not just because we're creatives. We're all creatives in this room, but that growth happens through accountability. It happens through a lot of dialogue, and it happens through showing up, even when things aren't fun, you get to work with great people, but when you work with great people, you get through, really hard things together and accomplish great things. But man, the revision process, I think some of the greatest teams I've ever seen, they have an internal review process. You guys have that. We have that, where you're reviewing your work, as a team to get to the best version of it versus, because it's just like in the music business, everybody has an opinion about everything. hey, what do you think about this song that this guy mixed? Well, if you give that to a different mix engineer, a different producer, they're gonna be like, well, you should give me that job because I could do that better. It's like, at the end of the day, we use the guiding principles here of, is it good for everything that God's doing in your process and in your system and your business? Is it good for you and your clients? And is it good for you or the client itself? When great ideas are a dime a dozen, but like, how do we actually qualify those?
Right. There needs to be a measurement of success. Measurement of success. How do we measure the success of this thumbnail? Mm-hmm. We need a standard of measurement.
That's right.
Right. And we need to apply that in the creative space, because a lot of creatives are like, I'm the artist. You hired me to do this, and this is how I do it. And guess what? You're going to probably get it or not get it, maybe in 6 weeks or 6 months. I don't know. Right. There's no standard of operation for them to succeed. Yeah. And there's no measurement. So what I love about what we're doing and you're doing is that we have standards. These gold standards, the standards that we carry is like, we have these SOPs and this checklist, and like, if it's not at this standard, it doesn't belong in our brand. And that's where you come in and say luxury item, baby. That's right. Luxury item, because that's what it takes. And it takes this handcrafted approach, but this operating system that you created as creative to get to the results. And that's what a master does, right? A master understands process and could get to your results every time. That's and right. You've been in sales for how long?
My whole life, dude. Even when I was carrying candy bars to the front door of somebody's home, right, you know what I'm saying? When I wanted that cookie, I was selling.
Mm-hmm. And you could tell automatically when you work with agents and salespeople, you could tell if they're a amateur, a pro, or what's that last one? It's called a cleaner or master, right? Mm-hmm. A cleaner can deliver every single. You could put a cleaner in any situation, and they're going to get you the results every single time, or what we call a master. If you put a master salesperson in any situation, they don't even have to have a pre-brief of the conversation. They don't need no setup. Yeah. They could go in there, and a master salesperson could clean house. Yep. And they could deliver every time you want to send your best. That's right. And if you know it's a big deal, you're going to send your best.
Absolutely.
And we only work with big deals.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. The thing that I think, and I was guilty of this for a long time, especially in the world of social media. The difference between what I could playing at the professional level versus even at the collegiate level, the difference was the level of expertise and execution, right? Everybody at the professional level was really good. There was a standard and a work ethic that was there that just, Coach Burt said this in a recent thing that I heard. He said, Olympic athletes do not eat Cheez-Its. Right? Elite athletes do not eat Cheez-Its.
Facts. Those are big facts.
That's right. And it's so, one of the most common conversations that I have in regarding to social media and digital marketing is people like, I think everybody would agree. Let's just say somebody like Gary V, like he's an expert at social media, right? And digital marketing. Say, well, do you think you know as much as Gary V does? And they'd say, no, absolutely not. Then why do you want the same results that he gets if you don't know what he knows?
Come on. Yep, that's facts. And you know what? Some people are like looking at Alex Hormozi and be like, well, I want to be like Alex Hormozi. Look at all the content, and he's everywhere, just like Gary Vaynerchuk. They don't want to pay the price of Alex. Alex pays $80,000 a month for his content team, and he has every department dialed in.
And hours upon hours.
Hours and hours and hours. And they're like, I need to get Alex Hormozi and Gary Vaynerchuk content, but all I got is 5K, John. All I got is, all I got. And they're thinking like, not small, but they're thinking lack. Yeah. Right? Because the content's what it's supposed to do is find their audience for them. When they make that investment and say, hey, I'm actually wherever I want to go to, I need to start playing at that level, right? And get that results. And a good friend of mine, Omar El Takori, shout out. He goes like, if you never spent $50,000, you don't know the value of $50,000.
I agree with that.
Come on. If you never spent it, right, you don't know the value of it.
That's right.
So if you're trying to get to this level but never spent that level, and then you're DIY and you're duct taping your way up to the top and asking yourself, why don't I get the same results they do? Mm-hmm. It's because you're not playing at that level.
The Hit Streak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the Hit Lab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. When I first started working with Brad Lee, and he was the first person that got us into video, and this studio is literally a mini replica of what he's got out in Vegas. It's very similar, but he told me back then, he was like, dude, if you start doing this at a high level, it'll either take you 2 years or up to 5 years, depending on your frequency. Right. And then later it was like, well, let's just dial it down to numbers. Right. So like, look, at the time, let's say I'd posted 2,000 times on my Instagram. Let's say he had posted 10,000 times. Well, he was literally like 80% further along in his journey than I was. Right. So like, think about every one of those 8,000 posts that I haven't made yet that he already did, had an audience, had eyeballs, had engagements, had shares, had all those things. And that's just, he just said, dude, I'm not better than you. I'm just ahead of you. That's all. He was like, but every time I post 3 in a day and you only post 1, I'm extending that lead.
That's right. And it's momentum too. So like content is supposed to, what is the job of content? And what is the job of these social platforms and the algorithm? Its job is, if you make one piece of content, it's like hiring a sales rep in your company, because what that one piece of content is supposed to do is find your audience for you and engage with it. Mm-hmm. Right. But there's a difference. Content isn't just content. Quality content is different than content.
No doubt.
Content in context is different than content. Right. But you got to have someone that knows how. You got to have a know-how. Mm-hmm. Right. To understand what content is supposed to do and designed to do. And if you don't work with people that understand that on a psychological level, then you're just going to say, I posted 100 videos this month and I'm still at X, Y, and Z. Well, tell me why. Mm-hmm. Tell me why. Because your content, let me just tell you, you haven't been black labeled or shadow banned or nothing like that, by the way. Yeah, you don't.
People used to ask me that because we've had a lot of trouble out of my Instagram due to Facebook hacking. And I said that. I was like, do you think I was shadow banned? And I think it was Brad that said, bro, you ain't that important.
You ain't that important. Let me tell you, your content just isn't hitting with the audience, period. Yeah. Your content in context and quality, people are just, you're competing against the Kim Kardashians. Yeah. And the Justin Biebers and the brands that have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on making content.
That's right. And they do. So if you're not going to play at that level, at least play in the context level of attention and giving value as much as possible. Because if your content in context is providing something to people that entertains or educates, well, guess what? People are going to watch it. And you can't blame no algorithm at that point. That's and right. Lean on that. Blame yourself. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Blame yourself for not thinking like, oh, you know what? If I want to do this and utilize this platform to monetize my brand, I got to start thinking or hiring people that can help me. Take ownership of that thing too. That's right. And like when you're hiring folks, I've worked with quite a few creatives that my biggest beef with them and why I don't work with them no more is because they didn't do what they were what they were servicing me for, right? So like they're making clips for me and I'm like, so like, yeah, dude, I need these things I need this, that, and that, and I need these clips to perform at this level and so on and so forth. But they weren't doing it themselves. And I'm like, well, if you believe in it, why aren't you doing it?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so like you got to, what's the saying? Don't trust a skinny chef. Never trust a skinny chef if they're not eating what they're cooking. That must
be a South thing because make a lot of stuff with butter out here.
We do make a lot of stuff with butter. But dude, it's, the people that you hire, you wouldn't, we give, we as parents, we're always giving our kids tutors or lessons from this person, golf lessons, baseball lessons, whatever. I know for a fact when I used to give baseball lessons, they were only there because I played at a high level, and that was proven. There was a track record. Yeah. Well, what's the track record of the creators that you're hiring, guys?
That's right. What's the social proof? And the proof is in the pudding, by the way. And everybody on my team, one of the qualifications is you got to be building your personal brand. You got to be building the stuff that I'm hiring you for. You got to be practicing, because I want practitioners in my company. I want practitioners because whenever I run into a problem, I need someone that's like, hey, I already been through that problem. This is how I solved it.
Absolutely.
Right. I need some problem solvers, and you can only solve problems if you're running into problems. And if you're scared of failure, you're not practicing.
That's right.
Right? Fear of failing, you don't do anything. I need some people on my team that know how to fail forward. I need some people on my team that know how to fail often and always. And in fact, I want people on my team to fail fast.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because once you fail, you recognize, okay, here's the problem. This was the gap. Now I got to figure out a solution. Right? And then they find the solution. And so whenever we end up into a problem again, guess what? We got something for that. We got an SOP that he put out or she put out or whoever put out, right? Because we solved that problem already.
It's amazing how so many folks, when they have the roadblocks in the way or whatever it is that's in the way of their journey from getting the greatness that they're really put here to achieve, how they'll sit there and they'll define their limits clearly. They've thought about them and then they'll even defend them. And this was a question that Brad asked a while back. And he's been asked multiple times again. But so let's see, you may have seen the clip. So somebody said, what's the best way to get rich? What's the best way to get rich? What do you think? So what would some good answers be, do you think? What do you think, Jim? Best way to get rich?
Man, back in the day when I was a kid, it's like, get a job, right? Like that was a thing, like go get a job. Man, I would say that you need to, for me, to get rich, you got to sit down and think about what you're doing. You need to dig in. My greatest growth came when I sat down and thought about all the steps involved with things and how much those things cost and what's all the time and the steps and all the process involved.
Yeah.
You know what his answer was? It was one word: quick. And he was like, but people will sit there and argue with you about that. Well, if you get it quick, then you won't know what to do with it. You might lose it and so on and so forth. And it's like, dude, that's all just pre-programmed stuff that's in your mind.
Right.
If you're going to get rich, why is quicker not better? And if you're going to learn lessons with it, wouldn't you want to learn younger and sooner and quicker?
Faster, yes.
You know what I mean? So what's the best way to get rich? Quick.
Man, I wish that I was telling somebody today that, man, if I knew what I knew now at 25, right? Like, what would you do differently? But yeah, quicker is better. Like and then when it comes to mentoring, like that's something you could definitely help somebody like, hey, it took me, 10 to 20 years to get to where I'm at. I'm 54 now. It's like, let's get you there sooner.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like that. Quick. That's a good answer because, I know Gary V says you want to hire fast and fire faster. Right. Hire fast, fire faster. You want to know if they're going to fit, if they're a company fit, if they could take, instructions, if they could deliver what they promise.
That's right.
Some people promise things and they just don't deliver. I don't understand that, that process of like,
That's
hey,
right.
I said I'm going to do it. And then they're just like, don't do it.
That's
I'm
right.
like, it's as simple. If you say it, just do it. A plus B equals C.
That's right.
Hire fast, fire faster. If you're looking for creatives and you're looking for someone to build in-house, or if you're wanting to work with creatives, the best thing you got to do is hire fast and fire faster.
Yeah, and you know why too, man? Because there's been so many folks and team members that came along the way here that are no longer here. And one of the things that you look back on is like, man, like everything you do is an investment. And there needs to be a return that you can measure on that investment. And if you spent months or even years with somebody and then they're no longer here, you didn't get a chance to get your return and neither did they. You know what I mean? And that's a bad investment as a business. That's why they say that. That's why Gary says that. Hire fast and fire faster, because it's an investment that two people are making into each other to grow.
Yeah, it's a commitment between two parties.
That's
it's
right.
saying, I'm committed to this, and the business is, I'm committed to pay you to do this because we need these outcomes. And if one of the party, doesn't work out, then the commitment's not fruitful. And the Bible says to be fruitful and multiply. Don't hide your talents.
That's right.
Right? Double it, triple it, 10x it. Do what you need to do. But don't just sit there and waste your talent.
So talk to me a little bit about, obviously, a lot of times people may be listening to this right now and they're thinking, I wonder if I'm their customer. I wonder if I'm their customer. So if we were like, who's an avatar of who your customer is and your client and where they're at in their journey? Yeah.
Number one, I think, and this is like the elephant in the room, is number one, you got to have good cash flow. You got to have money, right? Because you got to understand value of money. And like a lot of people are a great fit for me, for us, but they lack the discipline of generating cash flow, or they don't understand what an investment is. They think it's a spend. Those are two different things.
Come on.
Right? I'm spending money. One person says, I'm spending money to work with you.
Right.
The other person says, I'm investing to work with you. right? My investment in you will return and return big. When I spend money, there's a hole in the bag. There's a hole in the bucket. Oh, it's a spend. It's an expense.
That's right.
Right. But when they're like investing, I'm like, so that's number one, cash flow. Do you have the right cash flow? Number two, are you willing to test, learn, and adapt? Are you the willingness to test, learn, and adapt? We have a saying in our company, TLA all day.
I love that.
TLA all day. Test, learn, adapt. And you got to have a willingness to try and try again and learn from it and adapt and do something else. Because when it comes to your audience, when it comes to marketing, you could rely on trends. Trends is your friends, but you got to have this ethos and foundation of understanding that you have a purpose and mission, and you got to put that message out there, and you got to test it with the audience. You got to test those thumbnails. You might have 5 different thumbnails that our team creates, right? And then you're testing how people respond to it, because you're not doing it for you, by the way. You're not making content for you. And I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make.
Preach.
Is like, oh, I think this is going to do well. I think this is going to, I had this great idea. Can we, do this? And then the audience never asked for it.
It's selfish at the end of the day.
Right? They think they make that content to make them look good. So that's right. Number 3 is there can't be an ego. There can't be an ego. If you're going to work with us and if you're going to work on a high level and have luxury item opportunities with us, you can't have an ego. Sure. You just can't. You got to lean in and use the skills and talents that you have, but allow that to propel the mission and purpose. And you got to have a mission and purpose, by the way.
One of the greatest signs of security in a person is how willing they are to take any type of constructive criticism on how to improve. Because look, man, I'm a work in progress, and I will be until I'm no longer here. You know what I mean? And first of all, shout out to the 2 most important women in my life, 2 out of the 3 at least, because we got a 2.5-year-old daughter. But my mom and my wife raised me. You know what I'm saying? And my wife's still working on it.
Shout out to moms out there. Let's go.
That's right.
And wives, by the way.
That's right. That's right. But you gotta be open for that constructive criticism on how to get better, especially if you hire the right people. If you hire the right people, why wouldn't you want to listen to them?
Mm-hmm. Come on. Yeah, I don't hire someone so that I can tell them what to do. I hire someone because I'm like, okay, you're gonna get me to where I need to go. I'm not there yet, or else I would have gone there. I'm not there yet. The reason why I make my investment is so that they can help take me there. So I need to listen to their advice. And their experience.
What are some of the things that make the biggest impact on I know for us, we work with, again, where are they at in their journey? Are they kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 9th grade, high school, college, master's degree? Where are they at in their journey? And a lot of times the cash flow will tell you that. Yep. The cash flow where they're at in their journey with their marketing is usually cash flow.
Follow the money, baby.
That's right. And for us, we've just really focused on you need a quantity, like an actual quantity. You need a lot of it so you can do it frequently. But then there's a quality that has to be there. And I like to just say, it's like, dude, that's your storefront. And there was literally a restaurant over on Murfreesboro Road years ago that my grandparents used to love. And the management just kind of let the outside of the place fall apart. You know what I mean? And they quit going there. The food inside, the place inside didn't change, only the outside. And they quit going there because they couldn't get past the storefront. And does what you're putting out online on an everyday basis, does it match the quality of work that you do?
That's it. And I think you said something really important. Does it match? Mm-hmm. Does it match? Does your brand match? Does it make sense? And I love when we first started our conversation, you're like, oh, I met you and man, there's just something about you, that first impression. And then I went online and I was like, oh, he is somebody.
That's right.
It matched.
That's right.
Right. So the best, qualifiers, because I believe creativity can be objective, right? Or subjective. So if you see something, you're like, oh, I love that. And then to me, I'm just like, that looks like garbage. I don't know why you thought that was good. Right. We could debate all day what is the measurement of good quality.
Right.
But I think what we need to understand is the standard of quality is the standard of how their audience responds. The standard of how your audience responds. Of course, you got to have the basic foundations. You got clear audio. You got clear video. Is the editing clean? There's some basic foundations when it comes to creativity, but you got to know the rules before you break it.
Oh man. And you talked about this a ton out at your spot the other day, how how important the lighting is. And anybody can go buy a good, decent light these days.
Yeah. It's cheap.
But dude, you got to know how to work that sucker.
Yeah. It's like, you put a basketball in Kobe's hands back in the day, rest in peace, Kobe. Mm-hmm. Right. You put a basketball in Kobe's hands, you know what you're going to get.
That's right.
You put a basketball in my hands, you ain't going to get the same outcome.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't put in the discipline that he did. But when you work with disciplined creatives, business creatives, understanding and mastering their art, you could get the same lighting kit and order it from the same spot, Amazon.
That's right.
Right? But in their hands, they could turn it into a masterpiece. In your hands, it might look like we need some more duct tape. You know what I'm saying? You might as well order some duct tape from Amazon because this needs a lot of work.
Jim, what would you say? The journey here has been awesome just because everybody's come so far. Like a lot of what we do today, we learned while we were it's all very new because we learned it recently. And it's a lot of stuff we would learn is from working with guys like John. But like, what would you say? Because there's been some clients that we couldn't work with anymore. There's been some clients that aren't here anymore that we feel, man, we missed out, that we didn't serve them well enough because they should be here. Those are the people that we should be helping. What are some of the things that you've learned, especially in hiring our teams and being a part of finding our strategic partners? What are some of the things that really define what it is that we're looking at that keep people? Because when you hire an agency, it's a long-term relationship. It should be if it's the right one. What are some things that stand out to you as far as the good and the bad and the ugly and lessons we've learned when it comes to that?
Yeah, great question. John, when I was listening to what you were saying about, it's really important that when you can you actually deliver what you say you can, because in my mind, the standard there is that if I tell a client that I'm going to do something and then if I do it, great. If I don't do it, technically that's lying.
Yes.
Right. And one thing that I think that we found is that we were super capable of building like these kinetic, amazing relationships with new clients and generating revenue. But then there were times when, we had to things had to stop because it just wasn't working, whatever it could be. It could be like, it just wasn't a good brand fit. Right. That happens sometimes. And then sometimes it was that we actually didn't have parts of our process dialed in. It wasn't because we didn't want to. It was because sometimes, and to be honest, like we were building the wings of parts of the plane or discovering the wings of the plane while we were flying it. And even in this room that we call this the spaceship, because of the things it'll do. And but even thinking about like hiring people, I remember, around a year ago, we started a journey where one of our founding members, he came to us and said that, hey, man, I think I'm going to move on. And so we started this vetting process of finding new creatives. And boy, I could have a whole podcast on what we learned out of that. Mm-hmm. And that I've had, people go to people's houses to go get stuff out of that. And
why they have to go to the houses?
Okay, so they had to go to the house because that guy or that person took that content home on a drive, and because they had an editing bay, and then they had some other issues. And anyway, a friend of mine who was actually the person who referred that person to me ended up going to that person's house and like sitting there with them to get our content back.
Yikes.
And, we've had people, that have showed up and shot scissor reel content, and then all that stuff disappeared like poof. And we're sitting there like weeks before the production looking at, because we're months ahead here at the Hitstreak. Yeah. And then it's funny, we couldn't find that scissor reel anywhere. And that's why we have a tracking system of in our process of who's the shooter that day, mm-hmm. and who is the editor that's making the thumbnails and all those things, so that we can go back and go, hey, shooter, what happened that day? Yeah. And so we've learned about asking the right questions. And we say this a lot here is that we say a lot of things, but one of the things we say is live in the present, but operate in the future. So, it's like today we're living in the present, but we're operating in the future because like the next 7 days here there'll be a lot of like kinetic energy happening. But to make all those things happen, what we learned is we had to start asking the questions ahead of time that were like it's like anticipating the complaints that somebody was going to have if something doesn't go right. Like role playing.
Yep.
And have you seen that role playing, like building in leadership?
I think that's one of the one of the best tools any company could have is the role playing or objective handling when it comes to building out standard operating procedures.
You got to simulate it, man.
You have to, because it's like you got to figure out, because you're either going to have a lesson by failure or lesson by experience, right? Those two ways, right? It's going to be either you failed and you have the consequence of failure or the consequence of experience, right? So someone else, like, if someone gives you the wisdom, like, you know what, here's some practical things of things going wrong. What are the 10 things that could go wrong after filming this and taking it to distribution stage, right? So you got pre-production, the preparation of content, the production, which is what could go wrong during production. And then you got post-production. Well, what could go wrong during editing, right? Like, where's the files at? Where's the content structure? Where's the editing flow? Like, where's the music, brand assets, logos, all the stuff what's the name of the guy that was on there? How do we get the name? Like, where all that post-production stuff and distribution, like, where does it all belong? Where does it live? When does it get scheduled out? What day is it? This day it's Monday and the next time it's Thursday? Like, there's no consistency. The audience is wondering, when is it going to happen? Right. So if you don't have those questions in place during the process and structure of it, it's going to be really difficult to give a, almost like a outcome that is actually systemized, a systemized outcome. And that's what masters do, right? Masters think about, well, how do I get this outcome, and then do it over again and do it over again and do it over again.
That's right. The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
Most of the time, the masters that we're talking about too, they've been a part of they've been a teammate before, and they're not if a person's a one person company, like, man, there's a reason for that. Why haven't they scaled yet? Have they tried? Did they fail to do that? How well can they replicate themselves and others? And how do they know how to find those right others and everything else, right? So, we were talking about that the other day, Jim and I were, and how important it is that, like, when we're working and interviewing and qualifying people to work with them on a professional level, dude, like, have they ever been a part of a big team before? And did that team win? Did that team win? So all those things are extremely important when you're choosing those things. What are some of the other things that, John, that you think are some of the most common misconceptions about the space we're in and what we do? I mean, it's people will be like, yeah, dude, I posted 4 or 5 times, dude. I didn't make a deal yet. I'm like, oh, is that all it takes? It's 4 or 5 times?
I think the biggest mistake or misconception about what we do in our industry is the length it actually takes to see the fruit of the labor, right? People are like, well, I need this done in 30 days or else I'm going to work somewhere. I'm going to find someone else. I need results. And how long? The first question too, one of the red flags is when you like interview people or like you're working on a deal or something like that. If they ask you like, well, how long would it take to see results? Right? We all heard that before. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's not like a deal breaker for me, but it is a flag that makes me ask, why are you asking that? Do you believe that, are you trying to get to a ROI quick and in a hurry? Or are you comfortable with this might actually take a while? Because when you build brands and when you work with content, there's a lot of, there's a lot of variables when it comes to that. How do we create content? Mm-hmm. What's the content vehicle? What's the content strategy? Yeah. Are you comfortable on camera? They might have the money to go, but if they're like, like just a buttoned up, like, they're afraid to be on camera. They don't really know what to say. Their communication is really poor. How much content can we actually create from persona, right? So like, those are some things that I've learned, some misconceptions is like, it actually takes longer than you think.
Oh, if you're a pro, being on camera, it'll take a lot less time than if you're not a pro, because like, again, they can't, if you're the one on camera, the person can't change what, that you were there and what you said and how you said it. You know what I mean? They can coach you on it, but you still got to be able to, I can tell you how to hit a golf ball right down the fairway, but you still got to be able to stand up there and do it.
Yeah. I think like getting to the ROI or the results is how much you decide to put into the process.
The commercials that have the highest conversions of the most volume, dude, most of those commercials, those companies spent millions on just the creation of it itself, but then had to pay to go on those networks, right? So literally for that, the best ads and our favorite commercials that we see, especially the ones in the Super Bowl, well, dude, those companies had millions, if not tens of millions or more, in that commercial. And that's one of the reasons they're going to keep running them over and over again and running them on different networks to different audiences and so on and so forth, right?
Let me tell you, Nike spent $1.3 billion last year in marketing. $1.3 billion because Nike's at the top of the market, right? They're on top of the mountain. They play in defense mode strategy, right? Defense mode means I'm defending my title.
That's right.
So when you're in defense mode, your only tool is to outspend any other person, right? So when you're in defense mode, like Apple, McDonald's, all these top level, high, Fortune 500 companies, their marketing strategy is I got to outspend everybody else.
That's right.
Right? I got to outspend everybody else. And I don't know if your audience knows this, but the second one is offensive marketing strategy. Offensive marketing strategy, they're not trying to get to the top, by the way. They want to be the alternative. They want to be like, hey, I know you don't like spending money at McDonald's, right? Come to us. We got char grilled burgers, right? We got burgers that are never frozen. Their messaging changes.
That's right.
Right? So they want to get the alternative. You got Pepsi and you got Coke, right? Coke, top of the mountain, Pepsi, alternative, right? And then the third stage, this is really fun. The third stage when it comes to marketing is flanking strategy. This is a war term that I love. This is what Netflix did to Blockbuster. Netflix did to Blockbuster. They found, and then flanking in the war means if your opponent has more people or more men, right? And it's just sheer numbers, they're going to shred you and you have less, right? So let's just say you have 2,000 enemy and you only got 200 guys, right? Their marketing strategy is to sheerly crush you by number, right? So if you want to win that war, you got to use a flanking strategy where you find an open gap that they're blinded to. So they go around, the mountain or wherever it is, find a gap that they can't see. And then they start widening the gap and then they start taking ground, right? That's how you win. That's how wars are won, through flanking strategies against higher opponents or larger opponents. So what Netflix did, they saw a big, painful gap with Blockbuster's audience. You show up and guess what? Your tail's behind your legs going home because they didn't have the VHS or DVD that you wanted to watch. How many people had that experience?
All the time.
All the time. And I'm dating ourselves, because we were back in the 1900s right. And 80s and 90s, you know what I'm saying? But what did Netflix do? Mail the DVD to us. We always have your DVD on stock, right? Mail it to us. We'll mail it back. They found this big problem. They started widening the gap. They were the first ones to take it to digital, right? They were the first ones to take it on demand. Yeah. And not only did they take and shut down Blockbuster, Blockbuster had 200 retail stores across the nation. They were like top of the mountain. Netflix came to them and was like, hey, we'll sell our company for $50 million, right? And imagine who's kicking their butt for not taking that deal. Oh, absolutely. Because they said, what are you talking about? We own the market. Like, you guys are a baby startup company. Yep. And they're like, okay, don't worry. We'll be back, but it's going to be a higher price.
That's right.
Right. So they became on demand, and they not only went in there and changed the game, but they influenced the game, and every single media production company became on demand. Right. So they influenced the whole industry by flanking. And lastly is guerrilla marketing. There's $1 billion industry. I don't care who's on top. I don't care who's second or alternative. I just want a piece of the pie. So you see this in fitness companies, trainers, solar panel companies. They're going to go door to door. They're going to spread out flyers. They're going to pay minimum ads. They just want a piece of the pie. And that's guerrilla marketing. So just glad we broke that down for you.
Absolutely. Well, no, it's fantastic. And again, how would a customer go about understanding which tactic, which lane they should take when they're, based on who they are, what they're doing, and who their competition is? They
got to know their position in the market, and they got to be brutally honest. Because I was talking to some folks that think that they're in defense mode when they're really in offense mode.
Right.
right? They think they're top of the mountain, but they got competitors that are paying more and spending more. So number one is identifying your position in the market. And if we could be brutally honest about that, then we can start somewhere and start building from there.
So, I guess if you wanted to, if I'm dumbing that down to the school curriculum that I keep referring to, understand what grade you're in.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Understand what grade you're in. So, how well would it work if you put in high school algebra in front of a third grader?
Crush their spirit.
It would crush their spirit. They would fail miserably.
Yeah.
And nobody would win, right?
Yeah, you set them up for failure.
It's safe to say that working with us, we'll be able to help them through that journey, identify exactly where they're at in their journey, and know what comes next. But more importantly, like, why are you here? What is it that you're chasing? What's the goal for you? What's the end destination look like?
That's right. And when you're working with masters like ourselves, we've been in it for a long time and we practice. So we're practitioners. Practitioners know what questions to ask. And that's one sign of a master or practitioner, right? An amateur will just be like, well, I could solve it for you. Well, how much you got? How much you got in your bank account? Like, what's your budget?
Yeah.
Right? How many people say that? Hey, yeah, I could do this for you. What's your budget?
That's right.
And they don't set the tone. They don't set the budget and say, this is how much it's going to cost you if you're trying to get to this outcome, right? They don't do that. So an amateur would say, what's your budget? But a pro would say, like, what are you trying to get to? What are you trying to achieve?
That's right.
Right? They ask the right questions.
That's right. Is there anything else on the list here that we haven't covered that we need to cover before we kind of bring this sucker to a close? Is there anything else, John, that we're getting, Jim?
I got one. If let's say I've got a brand new Instagram account and I've got a brand new company, like let's just take my company. One of my companies, Gray Artist Services, right? We're based on an independent record label, and I wanted you to make a new Instagram reel. What would you, off the top of your head, without knowing much about my brand or anything like that, like, and I asked you to make a reel for me, what makes a great Instagram reel?
What makes a great Instagram reel?
I know that's like on the spot.
No. This is great because as a practitioner, I've had this experience. So my question would be, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to grow your Instagram or get views? How do you measure success when it comes to that reel?
I want leads. Let's say my goal is I want a lead.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do you want 1,000 views, or do you want 100 views that have 5 leads, or 100 leads? Do you want 1,000 views, 0 leads, or you want 100 views, 100 leads?
I'd like to have the leads.
Okay. So our measurement now isn't about how many people are following your brand and how many views you have. So what does that mean? We got to make intentional content that speaks to the actual buyer. So let me ask you what your offer is, right? Can we build something around there and then create a problem solution piece of content that's actually answering something that they didn't know they had a problem about? So if you make problem aware content as your first reel, saying, hey, this is the common belief around this thing that is in my industry, and this is probably the same problem that you have, right? But let me tell you why you're doing it wrong, or let me tell you why this didn't work out. And then, oh, by the way, if you want my quick PDF where I break down this and I just give it to you, DM me the word lead and you're going to get your PDF instantly. And then now you got their email and then you can give them a call.
That's right.
Right? Solve a problem. That's the biggest thing. And then if you want to even go super macro, what are the competitors in your market? Build related topics that's already trending, because the trend is your friend if you're starting out just from scratch, right? So you want to see who's in the market, what are they doing, what's their top performance, right? Because these are all public, numbers. What's the top performing pieces of content? Use that same soundtrack, use the same formats, use the same formula. You want to tell the algorithm that my content is related to their content. So find me more audience members that look like this audience or that would respond to this content. So you got to be really smart about it.
It's all about a strategy.
That's it.
It's all about a strategy, but more importantly, a clearly defined strategy. The best shooter is the one who can hit the smallest target, right? That's right. I guess one.
Hey.
Anything else that obviously the reason that we talked about this in depth at your spot, that we wanted to collaborate and work together, is because it's that keyword collaborate. There's too much out there together we can spread and help so many more people than we can competing against each other and so on and so forth. So the art of collaboration is incredibly important, and because you bring a whole unique audience that is totally different from ours, and then when you put them together, boy, that's something really special.
That's right.
And you bring a level of expertise in certain areas that we need. We have to have it. You know what I mean? And our clients count on us to find those relationships and bring people like you in, and so on and so forth. And it goes the other way. It goes both directions, right?
That's correct. Yeah. You got to be good steward of what God given you, your talent, your time, your treasures, and your relationships. Mm-hmm. That's huge, man. No one thinks of that.
And there's a certain level of security that it does take to say, we need that guy. We need her. We need to work together. You know what I'm saying? So it's not, you do exactly what the things that that we bring to the table as far as what we in our relationship. Could you do it on your own? Absolutely, but it might take longer. Just like eventually we'll learn it too. But you've already been there and done it, and you've had a track record that's established. And now I get to call and talk to all the people that we do business with and say, "Hey, man, check out what we just did."
That's right.
You know what I mean? I got a guy that you need.
That's right, man. I mean, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you're trying to go further, go as a team.
That's right. I was a guy that loved team sports, so I'm all about team.
That's right.
I'm all about team. Well, there's going to be a lot more coming down the line about all the things that we're going to be able to offer together. But I can tell you right now, one of the things where we're just kind of starting with is just the current people that we got. Like we got people, clients right now that need intros, that need some of the things that you provide, and so on and so forth. So we're starting with the current people we got right now, and then we're going to start bringing in and onboarding new people together, right? But it's all the list of services that you, besides podcasting, right? So everybody knows we do podcasts. So the list of deliverables and services that you provide.
Yeah. So as a chief creative officer, I provide a lot of strategy, consulting, coaching. If you have an in-house team that is just not performing the way you want, and you're not hitting the outcomes, and you're like, I'm about to fire this team, just hold on a minute. Yeah. Let's see if we could resolve, because you built a lot of relationship and rapport with them, right? Can we fix those things? So I come in, coach, consult. If you have an in-house team, I really help dial in the outcomes and SOPs and talk business creative, right? So I'll go in there and do that. So if you want to hit me up for that, that's great. Or if you want to borrow my team, right, you can do that too. So maybe there's something lacking. Maybe there's a gap when it comes to, I have a vision, but it's not getting executed, right? You could go ahead and hit me up, and you could borrow my team, or you could just reach out to us and we could build something unique together with what we're already doing.
Absolutely. And folks, this is John Mediana, the fraction chief creative, the founder and CEO at Executive Brand Growth, the host of the Branding Beyond Business podcast. And Jim and I were talking about this the other day. Literally, there was a gentleman in the building yesterday that I've known since college. And he's one of our biggest advocates and biggest fans. And Jim, this is the second person that said this in the last 10 days. You know what he told me? I bet you could guess.
You said that you're awesome.
Well, I hope he thinks that. He was here because he knows that we're awesome. But you know what he was here for? He said, "Oh, you mean I can actually use your team?"
That's right. Yeah, people are amazed when because that's the story, right? Is that Nick got the vision. He told Rhiannon on the plane from coming back from Brad Lee's podcast with Dropping Bombs. He's like, "Man, I could build my own studio." And then, other people wanted to start to do things with it. So they brought me in, and that's generally how it kind of like nurtured along. But then now we're getting people are like, oh, there's that flash moment of, oh man, I've seen the Hitstreak. And so you mean I could use the room? I could use a spaceship? And that's the conversation we're having with you, right? It's like, that's right. You and your folks could use the spaceship. Other people that we know could come and use the spaceship.
Yeah, because here's the reality, right? Some people just don't have the time to build, or even the muscle to manage.
That's the biggest one. A lot of people have the resources to build, but they don't have the muscle to manage.
Right? They don't got the muscle. They don't know the know-how. They don't have the time to sit in those meetings and really wrestle with the team.
Yeah.
All right. So they come to us and they say, "Hey, wouldn't it just be easier if we borrowed your team?"
That's right.
Because they already know, and you already manage them, and you already built this thing. It would just make sense for us to just do that.
That's right.
Right.
And it was a great moment for us, because we feel like we do a great job of letting everybody know that they can do that. but apparently we don't do it well enough. And that was like, thank you for that feedback, because it's like, all right, man, well, hey, we thought we were doing a good job and we need to do better, because they deserve it better, because people are coming in saying, man, we'd love to work with guys like you. You know anybody? And I'm like, we're right
Hello.
here. Yeah. But we don't do a good enough job of saying that. And another thing I challenge the team to, and Ben, listen up, like, dude, all the things we do, if you don't practice what we do, you won't be here long. You know what I'm saying? Because don't trust the skinny chef.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and how many people have come and gone or not come at all based on the actions of a team member, because I said, that person's credible. And they're like, well, it doesn't look like it online.
Well, and I think one of the ways that you your 3-prong approach to testing out content and getting new idea development is like, we have an in-house program that's called the Brand Accelerator Program. And I think that, one of the things that needs to happen is that every team member needs to have their own Brand Accelerator Program. We actually have that in the plan, but like, we really need to do that. Even you need to do one so that we can have all these conversations going on, because we're not telling our story in front of enough people.
Right.
And I know that you would make it better by experiencing it, like, so if I was building an airline and I was like, dude, it's got to be top notch first class. I'm like, hey, John, I need you to fly on this plane and then tell me if the experience is what I'm telling you it needs to be when you get off.
Absolutely, man. And that's like a biggest thing. I think a lot of people need to really understand that you have to have trusted people that will tell you the real thing and the truth, and be brutally honest, because excellence only comes from honesty. Right? I had to be brutally honest. And let me tell you this quick story of when I went to film school. I went to film school for 6 years, right? And it was a 2-year program. I did it for 6 years because I just, first of all, I wanted free rent living in my parents' house. But second of all, I want to learn from the best.
What's the joke? I went to college for 3, it was basically, he was like, I went to school for 3 cycles, but it was like, and he named 3 different presidents. So they've been there for like 12 years,
Yeah. But I remember my 2 best friends growing up, as I was getting into creativity and taking it serious, right? I was like, I invested into art school, not cheap, by the way.
That's right.
I was going to Santa Monica, and they told me, they're like, man, John, you're just not really good at this. And, and they really cut me down. They're like, I don't think this is for you, man. And it wasn't like out of like, I don't want you to do this. It's like out of love, like protecting me almost.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you're not that good at this. And then I had to make a decision that day, not to say either, okay, I'm not good today, right? Or I should quit.
That's right.
Right. And I had to choose. I said, does this give me life? Does this give me passion? Does this make me joyful? Does this, what I'm doing, I might not be good today, but if I put in the work, I'm going to be better tomorrow.
That's right.
Right. And now, flash forward, I've worked with, name a celebrity I worked with, name an influencer, I've been in their proximity, name people, like, it's incredible just the discipline and not listening to that voice that says quit.
That's right.
And knowing that you've been designed for purpose, on purpose, for a mission and vision and all the things that God had in store for you that he already prepared. Right. And that's the conviction that we need to carry as people that run companies, but also as creatives.
That's right.
If a creative could say, you know what, I'm not where I want to be, but if I put in the practice, I got to take in the brutal, honest truth. I'm not where I want to be. That's correct. You're right. But if I put in the practice, and if I submit, and if I find a mentor, if I get coached, if I invest into programs and into myself, I'm going to become better. And I'm going to have tools that's going to help me.
That's right.
Right.
And any of our clients that are seeing this today, you are welcome, because we're working for you. This relationship is to give you a better experience. It's to make everything we do for you better. We're better together, as you said before. The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. Is there anything else, guys, that we need to make sure we cover today? I believe we've knocked it out.
Man, we knocked it out the park.
That's right, baby. There it is.
There it is.
Crowd goes wild.
Grand slam, baby.
Crowd goes wild. Big shout out to my co-host today, right? Old Jim Gray, baby. Jim, thanks for hanging, man.
Man, thanks for having me. It's been super fun. John, thanks for coming in. And it's look forward to future conversations.
Same here, brother.
No doubt. And folks, we've been hanging with the one and only John Mediana, the founder and CEO at Executive Brand Growth. You can find that at executivebrandgrowth.com. You can check out his podcast, Branding Beyond Business. You'll find Gemini there. Check out that episode for sure. It's streaming everywhere you can stream a podcast, and on Instagram, it's at Branding Beyond Business, and his company, Executive Brand Growth, at Executive Brand Growth online. Dude, the man, the myth, the legend.
Let's go.
You know what I'm saying?
I am honored, and it's been a privilege. Thank you all so much for having me today.
Well, brother, the future is so bright that the next time we shoot one of these, we'll all be wearing shades, guaranteed. Plus, they're cool.
That's right.
They're cool. And people will be like, why are y'all wearing shades inside? That's why.
That's right, baby.
That's why. Well, dude, seriously, thanks so much. I'm proud to call you a friend. I'm so excited for our journey together. It's going to be a great time, man.
Yeah, man, me too.
Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.